Most people think they know what a donkey is: a smaller horse, a slower horse, maybe even a less intelligent horse. For centuries, people have used the word donkey as an insult: stubborn, lazy, simple-minded. But what if almost everything we believe about donkeys is wrong? What if one of the most misunderstood animals on Earth is actually one of the smartest? And what if the animal standing quietly in the corner of a field isn't a horse at all? Because despite looking similar, donkeys and horses are not the same species. A horse is Equus caballus. A donkey is Equus asinus. They belong to the same family, but they took very different evolutionary paths. And those different paths created two very different minds. At first glance, the differences seem small. 4 legs, hooves, long face, mane, tail. To most people, a donkey looks like a horse that somehow shrank. But nature doesn't work that way. A donkey is not a miniature horse. A donkey is a completely different animal with its own strengths, instincts, and survival strategies. In fact, some scientists and animal behavior experts argue that what humans call stubbornness in donkeys is actually intelligence. To understand why, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a cliff. Someone tells you to jump. Would you do it? Probably not. Most people would stop, look, think, evaluate the risk. Only then would they decide. Now imagine a horse. Horses evolved primarily as prey animals on open grasslands. When danger appears, their first response is often movement. Run first, think later. That strategy has kept horses alive for millions of years, but donkeys evolved in a very different environment. Their ancestors survived in dry, rocky, mountainous regions where a wrong step could mean injury or death. Running blindly wasn't always the best solution, thinking was. A horse that hesitates in open grassland might become a predator's meal. A donkey that hesitates on a dangerous mountain trail might save its own life. Suddenly, what looks like stubbornness begins to look very different. Researchers who study equine behavior often point out that donkeys process risk differently than horses. When faced with something unfamiliar, horses tend to react quickly. Donkeys tend to stop, observe, analyze. Many owners have experienced this firsthand. You ask a horse to cross a stream. It may leap across. You ask a donkey to cross the same stream. It may stand there, stare at the water, think, refuse, at least for a while. Many people interpret that as disobedience, but the donkey may simply be doing something incredibly logical. It is gathering information. It wants to know whether the crossing is safe. In other words, the donkey isn't refusing to think. It is refusing to stop thinking. And that difference may explain why donkeys have survived in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Unlike horses, donkeys are incredibly efficient in difficult terrain: steep mountains, rocky paths, dry deserts, places where every step matters. In these environments, caution becomes an advantage. A horse's instinct is often speed. A donkey's instinct is often judgment. Neither strategy is better. They simply solve different problems. This idea appears throughout nature. Intelligence is not one thing. A dolphin's intelligence looks different from a crow's. A crow's intelligence looks different from an elephant's. And a donkey's intelligence looks different from a horse's. The problem is that humans often judge animals based on how useful they are to us. Animals that obey commands seem intelligent. Animals that question commands seem difficult. But what if questioning commands is exactly what made donkeys successful? Scientists have found evidence that donkeys possess excellent memory. They can remember routes, locations, people, other animals, experiences from years earlier. Some researchers believe donkeys may recognize individuals after very long periods of separation. Think about that for a moment. Imagine meeting someone once and remembering them years later. That ability has obvious survival benefits. In harsh environments, remembering where water can be found may mean the difference between life and death. Donkeys are also highly social animals. Many people assume they are quiet because they lack emotional depth. The opposite appears to be true. Donkeys form strong social bonds. They develop friendships. They experience stress when separated from companions. They show signs of affection toward animals and people they trust. Owners often describe their donkeys as thoughtful, curious, observant, and surprisingly aware of human emotions. One reason donkeys are misunderstood is that they express themselves differently than horses. Horse behavior is relatively well known. People understand pinned ears, tail swishing, body posture, but donkey behavior is often interpreted through a horse lens, and that's where mistakes happen. Imagine judging a cat using dog behavior. You would misunderstand almost everything. The same thing happens with donkeys. People expect horse responses and become confused when donkeys behave differently. Yet when scientists examine the behavior more closely, much of it makes perfect sense. Even their famous bray serves important purposes. In open landscapes, the sound can travel remarkable distances. A donkey can communicate with companions located far away. In dry environments where animals may become separated, this ability becomes incredibly valuable. What sounds strange to us is actually a highly effective communication system. Perhaps the greatest irony is that the animal often mocked for being stubborn may actually be displaying one of the most advanced skills in the animal kingdom. Independent decision-making. Many animals simply react. Donkeys often evaluate. They pause, observe, assess, and only then decide. That may frustrate humans in a hurry, but in nature it can be a life-saving advantage. And maybe that's why donkeys have earned a reputation that follows them even today. Not because they are less intelligent, but because they refuse to hand over responsibility for their own safety. The next time someone calls a donkey stubborn, it may be worth asking a different question. What if that donkey is simply thinking? What if the animal everyone assumes is just a small horse has been misunderstood all along? What if the real lesson isn't about donkeys at all? What if it's about how quickly humans judge intelligence when it doesn't look the way we expect? Because the more scientists learn about donkeys, the harder it becomes to dismiss them. They remember, they adapt, they form bonds, they solve problems, they survive in environments that challenge even experienced animals. And perhaps most importantly, they think for themselves. So maybe the donkey's greatest strength isn't speed, or power, or beauty. Maybe its greatest strength is caution, a trait humans often criticize until the day it saves them. But what do you think? Are donkeys actually smarter than horses, or do they simply possess a different kind of intelligence that we've misunderstood for centuries? Let us know in the comments.